see, you know, I can't talk about it. It's too much. It's too personal.
Well, poor girl, she got, a week till Monday, we found out she got mono.
What? Tell her to quit kissing her husband.
I know, well, he didn't catch it, so somehow.
I'll put these up here if anybody wants some. She
So,
doing okay? Well, that would wear you out, too.
the professional, she had two things like this.
Just exhausted.
Good evening. I'd like to call the Monday, October 9th, Waterloo Community School District Board meeting to order. If you would please all join me for a moment of silence. Thank you very much. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Now we'll have Director Ewing read the mission statement.
The Waterloo Schools community commits to a comprehensive system of education and support to assure that each and every student will graduate prepared for college, career, and citizenship as evidenced by continuing education, pursuing a career path, and contributing to a community.
Thank you very much, Chanel. Next up is the time in our meeting that we allow individuals or delegations to address the board on an issue that they would like to make us aware of. Do I see anyone in the audience that would like to do that? If not, I will not read my caveat and we will move on. Does not look like it. Thank you. We will move on then to our advanced programming update. And Sharice Ortman is here to give us a brief update on the IB diploma and all the advanced programs within the Waterloo schools. Welcome, Sharice.
Hi, board. Good evening. Emphasis on brief. You ready? I do want to tell you, now that we have a new communications director, we're going to be working on IB and AP notables. We have kids at premier colleges. We have many who went into law, went into business, went into world politics, like some really big contributions to society. So at a later date, we'll do a little presentation on that. All right. So you can see some of the highlights and in the documents that were attached. Waterloo Schools has 96 various college options offered to high schoolers. The transfer credit from last year, along with scholarships, recovered, actually, the number went up, we're over $800,000 with some late scholarships that came in. Yay! For our 2023 graduates. In the program tonight, I'll talk a little bit about the demographics, transfer credits, academic scholarships, and enrollments. If you're not familiar with the IB history, I think sometimes we forget we are the only school district in the state of Iowa that offers the IB diploma program at both of our high schools, comprehensive high schools, and we also have IB World status, which has not been obtained for any school in the entire state of Iowa. So that's some really big historical perspective on things that we should be proud of. Also, we have the Twice Exceptional program that is unique to the Waterloo Community School District compared to other public schools. And now, I did add a link just recently. The University of Iowa is starting to recognize Twice Exceptional students, and they're going to start an academy. So more to come. That just started this fall of 2024 cohort will be the first one that can go to the University of Iowa with the Twice Exceptional supports. So we're very excited about that.
As a TUI mom, it changes everything. It really does.
Well, isn't it nice to have somebody focus on your students' strengths versus an area that maybe is a little difficult? In addition, we have the Biliteracy SEAL program offered, which is also unique to the Waterloo schools, advanced placement, IB, and several concurrent options, as well as students who attend the University of Northern Iowa their senior year. So we'll go ahead and get into the documents. I believe all of you have a copy of the program highlights. If not, I do have extra copies. And then I did give you one recently, just so you could see that new TUI Academy link at the University of Iowa. We've really partnered with them over the years, and Dr. Susan Asseline at the Bell and Blank Institute has always just been a really big supporter, and we've written articles with her for Twice Exceptional students. All right, so you can see here, I'll let you just look through some of the highlights, starting with the IB Diploma program. You can see the enrollment. Scholarships exceeded over 94,000 for the cohorts last year. And one of the things a lot of people don't realize is to get IB World status, you have to meet or exceed their standards. So it takes a long time. We had to be established for over 5 years before we were able to get the IB World status, which we did obtain that 2 years ago. So we're very proud of that at both East and West high schools.
Sharice, how many students took the IB exams in, I guess May, it would have been the last time they sat for
Right.
the exams?
We only had 14 full diploma,
Okay.
but we had 94 students taking exams. But for students who only take IB diploma courses exclusively, in addition to, they write an extended essay, which is empirical research that we do a viva voce at the end of their senior year. So they present their research to a panel, and all of their essays have been published, and they're in the high school media centers. So it's another unique niche of graduate level opportunity.
Awesome.
Thank you, Sue. We also had 75% of the students who took the Biliteracy seal were IB World Language recipients, and they did receive that seal. And we continue to have 4 years or less graduation rates with kids who take 3 or more IB diploma courses. It's 94% of our IBDP kids finish 4-year institutes in, 94% of them finish in 4 years or less. And now we're going to go into higher education graduation rates for the next presentation. This year we have 90 students taking 1 or more IB classes in the Waterloo schools. And you can see the IB ACT averages at East and West high schools below. I did that as a comparison against what our ACT averages compared to non-IB students in the Waterloo schools, so you can see that there. Questions about any of that?
I just had a quick question about Is there a challenge of maintaining both East and West with these programs?
That's a great question. It's probably, we have such competing pathways, right? And so we had to go through the whole recovery. The students who now are juniors who would start the IB diploma program were at the end of their 7th grade year, right? So we're still having some recovery from unfinished learning. And then we have a lot of competing pathways. So we have career opportunities and we have a lot of other things to compete with. I will say, since we opened it up to certificates, meaning one or more kids, our numbers did go up. We went up to, I think, 104 the first year we implemented certificates from an IB diploma cohort of only 28. So that really helped. What we look at is a couple of different things. We look at co-seating if the numbers are below 10. We also look at co-seating either with like an IB 11th grade year and an IB 12th grade year, or we co-seat with, for example, in IB German, we didn't have high numbers, so they co-seat with German 4. So we try to be real thoughtful that way. We also have kids travel between East and West High School. We've really tried to honor that they're offered at both campuses. I do have Vima this year, who has eyes on advanced pathways at East High, and I have Wade Timmons, who's a new administrator over at West. So we're going to do some further updates on building capacity in the program. Great question. In AP, we have 236. 41% of the exams were 3 or higher. You can see the stats below. Just so you know, we always had a bar of 30% 3s or higher, and you can see where we exceeded that at West High School, and that trajectory continues to go up every year. I would say last year I think we had the year before 48% received a 3 or higher, and now we're at 55% received a 3 or higher, and we have 2 of our AP classes above the world average, so above the state national average for AP courses. So we're very proud of that.
And I just
ahead.
wanted to say that even when they don't pass the exam, I've seen kids, just the rigor of getting to be in the class, it pushes them to another level. So even if they don't get the college credit, they're still getting their high school credit, obviously. And I've just seen personally the growth that it can get. So.
Well, you know, and here's me advocating, right? Just feel like you're better getting into college and you have a better idea of how to write and to speak and to advocate for yourself. Like, that's really what it's all about. 10 years ago, when I started having the opportunity to work with higher ed and college pathways, the first thing I said is, what are the challenges? They said students not being able to write or self-advocate or manage their time. So I feel really proud that we have so many opportunities for our kids to feel like, even if I don't get the transferable credit, right? Transferable credit is wonderful because what it's done over the years, it's reduced the number of years it takes to obtain a 4-year. And then for kids who want to go on to higher ed, it just compresses that time. And we have made growth. When I started, we were 5.5 years for a 4-year. We're down to 4 years for a 4-year, which is pretty cool. A little over 4, but most kids taking college courses 4 years now. And whether that has happened because they took some classes and they got the credit, and the credit compacted the amount of seat time, or if it's because once they started, they knew how to advocate and they knew how to write. I mean, those are some big takeaways that I want us to remember. And it's hard to sell that to parents, but 4 years is still not 5.5 years, and on the back end, it's close to $38,000, $40,000. So I try to remind families, and not only that, but sometimes don't rush. Don't rush. Sometimes you take a really cool elective at college and you love it and it changes your trajectory. And I want you to have fun, and I want you to get into the life of the school. You know, I mean, my son started a podcast at Iowa, not because of a pathway, but because he wants to. And I'm like, good for you. So I'm really proud that we have kids in our district who are not only thriving, but they're starting clubs and they're tutoring other kids in writing. That's really cool. We need to be proud of that. So I know I seem a little flat in these numbers, but I'm not in enthusiasm for opportunities that we have for all of our kids. So you're absolutely right. And I tell the students that when we go into our exam day, You know, they're so nervous and we put so much pressure, like you have to plan now. No, you don't. You get to experience and explore, and we get to have this opportunity for you to just kind of mess around. You're still at home. You get to mess around. You might want to take a couple classes at the Career Center, maybe take an AP, maybe take an IB, maybe not. But you get to mess around and explore, and that's pretty darn cool for our kids. And I remind them when they go to sit for exams, everybody take a deep breath. You're already done. This is just a CLEP test for a course that maybe you get a CLEP out of. That's all. You're already done. You've already done the work. You already have the knowledge. You already know it. So exhale. Yeah. Sorry. Get a little
Therese,
passionate there.
Do
Yeah,
we
Jesse?
have data on ACT average for probably students in the honors diploma, but not IB, non-IB honors?
Oh, non-IB honors. I can pull that.
That might be interesting to see how those other advanced AP class, concurrent pathways are preparing kids for that as well.
Well, and I want you to take a look at those numbers down by ACT average. Only 39 students at East took the ACT last year. 160 took the ACT at West last year.
Yeah.
Some of those trends are due to families opting not to have the ACT average
ACT
as a
optional,
college
yeah.
admittance. And that's fine, but they have to know that, like, if most of our kids, over 90% of our kids for a four-year go to UNI, Iowa State. If they're going to go to a four-year, they go to a state school. So if they're going to do that, they have to have that region's admission index calculated so that's, if they're not going to include their ACT, we need to look at other things like your GPA and how many liberal arts courses do you take. So we just have to be real thoughtful when we're counseling and as parents and consumers that we know that process.
I just thought it'd be an interesting data point, and
Yeah, it
you know,
would be.
and that, you know, the ACT optional, you know, was big during COVID, but there are some schools that are starting to roll back on that now. Mm-hmm. That you know, that cohort is, you're starting to see more of them add it back in now as.
Right. And you saw what I have on here, if you want to look at it, you know, tonight when you're unwinding after a long day. What you're going to see is there's a difference between kids who are recovering scholarship money, academic scholarship money, and kids who are getting the credits for recovered credits, right? So those are two different things. Students who usually are trying to get the academic scholarship, most of those academic scholarships still require an ACT score. And for the state schools, most of their big ones are going to be, you want about a 28 or higher, right? So along with the GPA average, and they still look at what you're taking. So even though we say, okay, you don't have to, sometimes it can benefit a particular student. So we don't want to overlook all different kinds of students and pathways. And then you can see on the back, we have the concurrent. Those are all, by the way, Hawkeye classes this year. We don't have the Kirkwood and DMAC courses offered this year. You can see that tuition recovery. Again, that's tuition recovery for students who did go on to Hawkeye. But we also have tuition recovery of Hawkeye credits going to state schools, especially the liberal arts courses, those transfer to state schools. And then you can see down below, high school and WCC. You can see the enrollment. Questions about that?
And those are enrolled by class or number of students that are taking at least one. What kind of enrolled number is that?
50 non-duplicated students.
Non-duplicated?
Non-duplicated, yes, I'm pulling non-duplicated. And you'll see the demographics document next,
Yep.
and that's also non-duplicated.
Okay.
And then you can see we have the ELP and talent development, which I'm very proud of. In fact, Sally, who's one of our ELP teachers at Lincoln and Poynter, just happened to be here tonight. So to all those ELP teachers working tirelessly to ensure that, I think people forget on the other end of the continuum, our academic achievers should not be sitting idle and should have opportunities just like any other group. So I'm a fierce advocate for that group. You can see our numbers district-wide that are pretty consistent. National Association of the Gifted Child says between 4 and 8% are actually gifted, and then we have a lot of kids who are talented in a certain area, but maybe not everything comes easy, but a particular content area comes easy, and we really pushed that 2 years ago at the middle schools to include talent development, which is really sort of a small strength-based opportunity for kids with career opportunities too. So we have both at all 4 middle schools now, which I'm very proud of.
It's also a confidence booster if you have if you're a kid who could do math, but you cannot read, to be able to, when my son was put into talent development for math and he was reading Dr. Seuss in 3rd grade, it changed how he thought about himself.
Yes.
So,
That's a big part of what you're gifted or you're not gifted. That's not okay, right? You have strengths. Let's see if we can create programming that meets your strengths. Absolutely. And you have a copy of the GT Action Plan. That's a 3 to 5 year plan, and you can see how we work really hard on including underrepresented populations in advanced pathways. And then the next one is Twice Exceptional, which is also an underrepresented population. And we have 67 TUI students district-wide. And then that new link is what I'm super jazzed. So coming soon to a university near you. I love that the University of Iowa is recognizing and honoring our Twice Exceptional population with some future academies at the University of Iowa. So very excited and proud of that work. And then you can see our biliteracy seal. 16 students, seniors receive this seal, and now our state schools are starting to offer language credit, which is pretty cool. So we're happy about that. Any questions on that part of it?
Now, that data shows 21, 22. Do you not have results yet for 22, 23 on the biliteracy?
Yeah,
scale?
that should have been, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Sorry
okay.
about that, Sue. Yeah, that's 22. That was this last school year.
That was
22,
okay.
23.
Thank you.
Graduating cohort. Thanks for, we didn't even get to the program of studies edits. Good job, Sue.
Does the biliteracy seal change with the, I feel like they came down with from the state level that they don't really are required to have foreign language for 2 years, or it's only 2 years?
So that was something that came out recently from the State Department, that you don't have to have 4 years to
Yes.
graduate, you can have 2 years. However, for higher education and kids going on for university, we really encourage 4 years. Not only is it required at most of our state schools in particular disciplines, but it sends the message that we're global minded and that we believe language matters. And that's why we're going to still continue our path. And what I do in the spring is I open it up to students. The IB students automatically take the assessment, and they get the seal if they score within a range. But I open it up to all students who've completed 4 years of the same language to go ahead and take the Apple test. And I will say that pool is a little smaller, so I'm working with world language staff to encourage the writing section is where some of the students struggle. And so we're looking at that feedback from the Apple assessment in the spring and talking about how can we ensure that we integrate in the language writing so that we can get more kids getting that biliteracy seal. It's not bilingual, it's biliterate. I can speak, read, and write in 2 or more languages, including English.
Well, I will say that, certain degree programs don't require the 4 years of foreign language, and some schools are not even requiring it at all. But, I think the key is, taking something good, but, if a child wants certain electives and is being forced to give out electives because they're saying you have to take foreign language when they don't, it's something we got to be careful our counselors aren't hurting their opportunities or interest in our area, career center, whatever, because they're saying you got to do this. Well, you don't necessarily have to. It's a little easier. And technically, I mean, you could still, most of the colleges, if you don't have it in high school, you can take it in college if you had to.
Right.
It's harder though, and I mean,
Right.
yeah.
No, you're right, Jesse. I mean, even for Brenner, he took 3 years of Spanish. He said, Mom, I want to take some Career Center. I want to take like a couple IB classes. It's just not going to fit in my schedule. And I'm his mom, biliteracy seal advocate. And I said, well, you're still going to have to take it when you get to college. And he is. He's taking a heritage class now. And he's going to have to pay for that.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you're going to take it.
I mean, yeah, I made the same mistake.
Yeah.
I took 1 year of Spanish, I needed 2 for engineering, had to take a full year worth in college. But if they have interest in other areas, then the challenge, especially when they're in the 9th and 10th grade, is they don't have elective space. So if any of the kids are in fine arts, they just took one right there.
Right.
And so
Right.
you only get one other option to do something else. It's like, okay,
Right.
you might find a balance of But what we don't want is counselors saying you have to take foreign language and you got to choose it over something else. If something else is really their interest, you know.
No, and we've talked about that, and we're meeting with counselors Thursday. We're having a counselor day at the Career Center, and that will come up again, that 2 years is required for graduation. However, if a student wants to pursue the SEAL, or they are looking at a university that requires 4 years, we
Right.
have to be thoughtful about
Yeah.
that. And also, it's included in the Region's Admission Index. Liberal colleges still value language.
Yeah.
So, yes, you're right. So demographics and advanced programs, I'll let that sort of sink in for all of you. I did decide to update it and break the concurrent classes at the Career Center versus the ones at the high school down, so you could see those numbers. And that's this demographics document. If you need an extra one, I do have copies.
So I know like the WCC one, the female one is higher mostly because of the like health program, right? That's kind of where big, I'm sorry, what?
Education.
Yes, yeah.
In pre-K.
But the others, so like AP is pretty balanced. With IB and the high school concurrent, and I'm just looking, I haven't even gotten into ethnicity, but with gender, what do you think we could do differently?
Well, one of the things, keep in mind, I've only extracted concurrent, which are the Hawkeye courses. The Career Center this past year had a lot of CTE courses that were not concurrent. We were trying to really build that internship and then eventually an apprenticeship with some of our skills trade areas. But I do see that the WCC team is going to go back to more of those being concurrent. So I would see the gender balance starting to tick up. So that does not include like sustainable construction, the electrical pathway. Those were non-concurrent this past year.
Okay.
And Ignite's done at the Cedar.
Pardon?
Ignite is done at WCC.
No,
concurrent.
Ignite's not a concurrent class.
No.
No, it's
But
not a
that- I
college
mean,
class.
That would be almost like a WCC class, but we're hosting it at the buildings instead.
Right, which will be.
Yeah.
Ignite 1 and Ignite 2, as you saw probably on the board, the program of studies for board approval, those will both really be pushing Ignite 1 and Ignite 2 this year
Yeah.
at the high schools
Yeah.
as a pathway class, correct?
Why do you think there's such a difference with the liberal arts and IB numbers, though?
As far as gender?
Yeah.
Well, I could break down, if you want me to, for all of the concurrent courses. Well, I can tell you right now. We have Composition 1 and 2, and we have Fundamentals of Oral Communication, heavy rhetoric literacy, right? We also have Intro, U.S. History 2 and Sense, and then we have Statistics. So those are the liberal arts courses that we offer at the high schools. So you can kind of maybe process what that looks like. I can get you the gender numbers in those specific classes, so that could be part of it too, Stacy.
Yeah.
AP, I could break it down for you. We have 9 AP classes, so I can break down the gender if you'd like that. That'd be easy to do. I could break down the gender difference. We have anything from AP Chem to AP Calc to AP Biology to also AP Music Theory and AP Lang and AP Literature. So we have a nice, I would say, balanced repertoire of liberal arts courses that I could show you the gender difference in those.
It probably just comes down to the interest area of each student, so.
Right. It fluctuates. I would say I think I reported last year, our biggest uptick is Black and Hispanic females in college classes. And Black males is on the decline. So that's something that we looked at. I've talked to both of the advanced pathway administrators. What are we doing in middle school? What are we doing in elementary? This isn't a new thing, but it sometimes swings and it trends, and that's where it's trending right now.
Is it on a year decline, or is that over a few years?
It's probably been the decline for 2 years. And then what we did is looking again at advanced pathways, especially AP and IB, for underrepresented students. We're going to do a reboot of that action plan with the new administrators who work with advanced pathways. I hired Chris Timms, and he's really increased the interest for Black males at East High. He's also a coach, and he does instruction around a Socratic, so it's more palatable, where it's not just sit and memorize, but let's talk, and let's apply it to real life experiences. So instructors make a difference too. big time, working on that.
Yeah.
Any last wonders on the demographics? And does that make sense? So you can see in the first column, that's our breakdown for 11th and 12th graders, which is most of the students taking college courses in high school are 11th and 12th graders, so I did keep it 11th and 12th grade for the purpose of this document. And then as you can see, which should be very consistent with the percentage of the demographics.
How does ELL fall into demographics and impact at high school level?
I could break it down by ELO.
I just wonder, like, talk about some of that. If they're still learning language, the odds are they're not going to take an AP Lit or Lang because they're still, does that impact the percentages a little bit somehow?
Well, you've got the lovely Dr. Boreano who oversees all that, and her and I just had some good conversation
Yeah.
about how do we support students who are still acquiring language, but we want them to have opportunity.
Yeah.
Just today. Another thing that I talked to Vima at East High School, and we're looking at 2025, looking at heritage classes with Dr. Boreano and Vima, and starting some becoming highly educated with speaking, reading, and writing in your heritage language, and how that can really help with that transfer into other more rigorous or college pathways.
Great idea.
Yep.
That's super.
All right, crew.
Or comments, questions or comments for
We'll save
Sheree?
it for the next action item.
Yeah, thank you.
Going to
Thank
be
you
ready
for
for
doing all
supper
this,
tonight.
Sheree.
Thanks, board. Appreciate your support over the years.
Thank you for your good work.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes. Okay, the next item then on our agenda tonight would be the consent agenda. And tonight that consists of 6 items. And that would be, item 1 is approval of minutes. And, let's see, can I get them, well, I'll give you that, we have a new format and I'm like,
I know,
oh,
it's freaking me
gosh,
out.
I don't know what to do. Okay, sorry. Okay, the, item 1 is approval of minutes. Item 2 is personnel appointments and adjustments. Item 3 is bills due and payable and bills paid between board meetings. Item 4 is the classroom space availability for open enrollment purposes. Item 5 is the set date of public hearing for the sale or disposal of real property. Item 6 is board members' travel. Are there any items that board members would like to have removed? Okay, with that then, could I get a motion to approve the consent agenda as stated?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries 6-0. All right, so then that brings us back to Sharice, and it is the 24-25 High School Program of Studies. And let me get that, is the superintendent's recommendation that the Board of Education approve the 24-25 High School Program of Studies course catalog.
So moved.
Second.
And discussion.
All right. Hi, everyone. Should have brought a different cloak so you didn't know who I was. All right. So each year, a revised high school program of studies is brought to the Board of Education for review and approval and reflects the transformative changes in the continuous improvement journey of our high school programming. It's used as a reference tool for scheduling students into appropriate courses and programs, informs students, parents, and community members about courses, curriculum, policy, and provides transitional information for students moving from middle school to high school. So I did provide, if anyone wanted a hard copy, if you didn't bring yours with you, I do have a few floating around. You can see the noteworthy revisions at the bottom of this agenda. We have, most of them have been added at the Waterloo Career Center. Lion's share of them, all the way down to double M. I haven't done that one before. And then you can see which courses we deleted. General area high school locations, we've added 4. We actually added algebra parts back, if you want to ask anything about that. We've added mythology back, and we added a new really cool mystery literature, Connecting the Dots, which will be podcast creations. It's super cool. And due to those incoming electives, we removed Children's Lit and World Lit. Children's Lit, just so you know, I don't think you everyone's familiar with, if we offer a concurrent class, we can't have a high school comparable course, because basically you're saying, why are we paying supplemental weighting to go beyond core classes if you already have that course? So we probably shouldn't have been running Kids Lit. Is this being televised? And the numbers continue to drop because we have the college Children's Lit concurrent course in place. World literature class, just so you know, we've had fewer numbers, and now that we're increasing things that are a little more relevant, we did do surveys at both East and West High School of our students to see what they would be interested in, and got some feedback, especially on that new mystery literature class. So that's why we tried to balance it out with new electives, and then removing some that have been less popular over the years. And then I believe you had a wonderful meeting a week ago with Jeff Frost and his team to look at all of those additional courses. I did asterisk anything that was concurrent, so you can see we have increased a lot of concurrent courses for the fall of 2024. And I don't know if you have, but I do put in the program of studies a regions asterisk next to it, which means that it would be calculated in the Regions Admission Index. So I always want counselors and families to be aware of, sometimes we get excited about electives, but they're not the core courses, so it might impact your Regions Admission Index if you're going to a state school. So I'll let you look at that for a bit. We also changed descriptions, you can see at the end, to a few, just to make them, I would say, a little bit more updated and a little more consistent with some of the changes to make them more student-centered. You can see Ignite 1 and Ignite 2. I believe that the description captures it a little better than what we had in there before. And you can see the other ones that we've updated and given sort of a new, fresh look to the descriptions. I'm going to let that sink in for a bit, and then if you have any questions.
It's really good to see college experience.
Yeah.
So does it talk about also just like, I'm not quite sure what all would be in it, but does it talk about like kind of what you're going to be doing now that you're going to be a grown-up person being in college? So
No, that one is, let me see where I have that in the program. I believe that one's the one that we're partnering with our computer network. Let me look. Yep, just a moment. Yes. No, that's a little deceiving, Stacy. I wondered if you were going to bring that up. So if you look on page 45, it's 1 day a week, and it's designed to orient information technology or information solution students to college campuses and resources. So it's really specific. We debated back and forth. I talked to Jeff and his team. Did we want to keep it in networking, web development, and cybersecurity, which is Kyle's pathway? And that's a better place for it. It's really a niche. It's really, honestly, just for that programming. Now, do we love the idea of some college experience courses? We are working on rewriting C3 currently to make it more relevant to current pathways and financial literacy.
okay, I'm glad you.
Course experiences, and integrating in Zello. So if you're going to do some Zello, I'm looking for a career, I'm wondering about a career, here's my strengths, let's pull what the Waterloo Schools already has that might be of interest in those pathways, whether it's at the high school or at the Career Center.
We just had an argument at home about this, about
Working on it.
we need to make sure that when a kid graduates, they do know how to balance. It's not a checkbook anymore, but do your account. And you know, there's just things that you forget that
Right.
they don't know how to do. They're,
Right.
you know, they can write these great papers and then they go to the bank and they overdraw. So,
Yep.
I love seeing some new stuff added to C3. So.
We have Devin Winters and her team and staff at both high schools working on the updates. We were hoping they'd be ready for second semester, but we're really trying to make it very lovely and interconnected, so it might be fall of 2024, but I'll make sure that you have those updates.
Sounds good.
Are we having to hire additional teachers for these programs?
Well, Jeff's pathways are definitely going to need new instructors. Not the ones that I have at the high school. What I have them do, that's part of when they look at a high school course, they have to look at their current FTE. And that's why we looked at, if we're going to build capacity in some of these courses, we are going to look at ones that our students have sort of worn, and that's not something that feels as relevant or of interest for them. So we really try to balance that out. As far as like the career pathways, once this is approved tonight, that's Jeff's nitty-gritty work. He already has people in mind, so he'll start that whole process of building the FTEs, building the curriculum, building the environment out at the Career Center to offer those courses.
And wouldn't the position be based on enrollment also? You know, if you don't get numbers or you get lots of numbers?
Chicken egg. You still want to build it with the staff, right? You want to have it and you want to build it. And now as we compete with different pathways, we just have to be really thoughtful about what we offer and how many sections we'll offer, right? So we think about all that. You know, for that mystery literature course, just as an example, I foresee that having 2 or 3 sections. So that could impact 2 or 3 different teachers, or it can impact one teacher who might have to give up something else they're teaching. So if those numbers, like we had this happen this year, you know, full disclosure, Sue, we had a class that we thought we were starting at the Career Center. It was going to really pick up some momentum. Well, it didn't, and then a lot of kids ended up dropping it. So we pivoted, we dropped that course from his offering, and then we had him build in something else into some of our CTE classes so he could offer like practical math in the workplace, right? So both. You have to have it, and then you want to build it, and if you don't get the numbers, you've got to pivot and say, okay, now what is that person going to absorb to cover that FTE?
And I spoke to Pam, we were looking through it, but for the graduation requirements, neither the honors nor just the district requires any foreign language whatsoever. It's on page 10 and 11.
It doesn't require it. I mean, we could probably, here's an interesting thing. Those students go on to 4 years, so when they're building their pathway, world language, just so you know how it works in 8th grade, it automatically drops down as a 9th grade course that you would probably take as an elective. It tends to be there. We've never put it in the program of studies for graduation requirements, but we could. I mean, if we wanted
Well,
to add
just
something.
thinking about society and what we just discussed as far as bilateral seal and bilingual and,
Yep.
you know, that I think it would behoove our students if they would be able to at least be exposed to another language.
Most are. I would
Right.
say probably 95% of our students in 9th grade take Spanish, French, or German. 90%. Start with a world language, and then by their sophomore year, that's where you might start to see a split. Kids are interested in other things, and if they're not going on for a 4-year or pursuing the SEAL, they tend to absorb that elective in another way, mostly Career Center.
Well, thank
I
you.
don't, I mean, I kind of like think, you have a child that struggles in language, maybe that might be too much of an ask, you know. If, you know, if they're struggling with English and not even EOL, just a student that's their deficiency is in their language development, ask them to learn the second one when they're struggling to master their primary, maybe more than.
Well,
they
that's
have
what.
a requirement to graduate and you struggle in language anyway.
Yeah, and that's part of why we're looking at the heritage language.
Right.
We have a lot of students who come here speaking French and Spanish, and we have CLEP offerings, just so you know. We don't make a student sit in a class where they're idle if they have evidence of the standards. They can take Spanish 2 their first year, or maybe even Spanish 3. So we've always been accommodating based on evidence of their standards, but the heritage language would really help with that, because it could build that repertoire of writing and reading as a transfer option.
Yeah, I'm thinking more as maybe as a child had IEP in language. That then you're going to force them to take a foreign language and they're struggling to read on grade level at, you know, in just English itself, you know.
Right.
That might be more, too much of an ask, it seemed like, but,
Yeah, and I'm thinking it could be elective.
yeah.
As
Right.
an elective requirement, because there are some students that, you know, they do have the option, but we're not even mentioning any foreign language at all in our
Yeah.
requirements.
I still haven't figured out, I sat there, I scratched my head with the natural science between the graduation requirements, which are reflective in the state, and the Regents requirements for natural science, and that in the Regents, they require 3 years, but there's only one scenario that you can do 3 years of foreign language, or 3 years of science and graduate, but then you wouldn't meet requirements for Regents, so you're almost forced to take 3.5 years of science.
Well, it's why we started, remember, advanced pathways aren't only for GT and talent development students. They're really open access. That's what I'm proud of. So when we made the integrated science course, it was to help circumvent that. They can get 3 years of graduation requirements in 2. So integrated life and integrated physical science are compacted, the 3 required sciences in 2, but then most of those students would be prepared for either AP or IB, chemistry, physics, or biology.
I'm looking like, okay, you took Earth and Space required by state, right? Biology required by state, and then say you took 2 years of physical science, AB. So you would not have the natural science requirements for Iowa State at that point because you had no chemistry.
Right, so that's where the counselors always talk with students who are anticipating going to a 4-year that requires that and encourage them to take chemistry.
Right, it's just a thing of, there's no scenario where we only have 6, that's what the Regents require. So it seems like we're somewhat out of step between the state requirements and the college or state college requirements in the science offerings. Because you might only you may want to go to, okay, you say you want to go to Iowa State and major in say psychology. I'm just gonna make something up here. But you would have to go and take another year of, 3.5 years of science here to meet requirements going in, to get requirements there, just the general admission requirements.
So that's why we started that integrated science class, Jesse. So like we encouraged kids to try to compact it so they could take more. We used to have, just so you know, the history of it, until Earth Space requirements came into our program, we had science offered. We had bio in 8th grade. Our advanced science, physical science was offered in 8th grade.
Yeah.
And then they would have bio as a 9th grader. So that pathway looked a lot different. It did impact in the beginning our college science courses. That's why historically we created that integrated one to help with combat that. Now, if I have enough people who can teach Earth Space, I could offer it again at 8th grade, and then that would help open up that pathway too.
Yeah. I just think just the fact that they just don't, the Regents don't seem to align with the state in terms of requirements there.
Well, and I
In the
would say,
science pathway, it just, what our Regents require versus what the state requires, it drives you to take more at high school, and maybe you really want to or need to, or, or pushes you into a class you're not particularly strong in.
sometimes we have that happen, and then if for some reason that student decided not to take chemistry or physics, those are the 2 that usually are required at the state schools by the time they graduate. If they didn't take chemistry or physics, I mean, the worst case scenario is they take it when they get to college, right? And I'm not a fan of that either, but typically by the end of their sophomore year or their junior year, the counselor's advising them, if they're planning on going to pursue 4-year, that they would need to get physics or chemistry in.
Is there a way that we can get the numbers, the percentages of students that take that pathway, the biology, physics, chemistry, two of the 3? We ran into this also with students wanting to enroll in Iowa State, no matter the program. Is those some numbers that we can, the percentage of the schools to see how many students actually take that avenue, the biology to the physics, chemistry mix, the 2 out of 3?
So do you want the numbers, Aster, for the integrated sciences, which are completed in 2 years, or do you want the traditional path that you see on here?
Traditional path,
Okay.
Traditional, yes.
And
Yes.
I think you're saying another thing. You're saying get the percentage of the kids who took that path and maybe didn't take a chemistry or physics before they graduated for higher ed.
No.
Correct?
That took the physics, chemistry
Oh,
before they graduated.
Who took it before they graduated? Sure.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. I can do that.
Yeah. So the biology plus the physics, chemistry, 2 or 3, whatever the semester requirements are.
I think you're
to be
saying physical. You're saying
Regents
physical
school.
science, biology, or space, or
No.
No.
Not physical science.
You're saying after they do the graduation requirements, how many then went on to take a physics or a chemistry who are going on for 4-year?
Or took them as part of the graduation requirements.
Okay. From last year?
Just, yeah, last year's numbers are good.
Sure.
Another question, something that came up today. Can you talk about what are the equivalent exemptions for physical education?
Oh, yeah, we actually have them. If you look in the, let me see which page they're on. I have them in here for you. P exemptions are on page 16, Astor.
16?
So, there's academic exemption, which is one that I work with quite a bit. So if a student has a full load plus one seminar, they have P exemption, so it would be an academic full load.
So they can have a seminar.
Yes, you
Okay.
would have to take all but one. So if you are in full load, that means out of 8 courses, you're taking 7 academic classes and 1 seminar class. That would be the full load, and you'd be exempt. Then there's also, you can see on there, we have the athletic exemption. You can see which semester those athletics, we have medical exemption, we have religious exemption. And we also have, that some of you might not realize, we have a community option where students, if they are like in skate club or they're in an organization in the community, they can actually log that time, and that would qualify. It's considered a course, actually, because they would meet with the PE teacher at that school to make sure that they're getting the follow-up instruction. And then they keep track of, like, a log of their activity.
Do we have many kids doing
The way
that?
this is,
I'm sorry.
the way this is written, if a student participates in 2 semesters of athletics, they can be exempt from physical education for the whole year.
If those are sports sanctioned by the Iowa High School Athletic Association. And then those are listed down below. So football, volleyball, boys golf, you can see those.
Yes. So you can essentially get an exemption for the whole year if you participate.
Right,
Okay.
if you're taking first semester, any of those Iowa High School Athletic Association courses, or, sports in the fall, and then in second semester, yes, you could be exempt the whole year if you're involved in any of those. The ones that are not, you can see on there, are band, cheerleading, dance, hockey, color guard, GROTC, and trap shooting, because they're not considered, sanctioned activities.
But to me, that seems a little, I guess, bad on their part, because band and JRTC are in our curriculum. And so we're saying our curriculum is non-sanctioned? I mean,
But if those,
I mean,
if those-
literally,
This policy was written quite a while ago. I'd have to look at the reg. I wasn't part of that, except the academic exemption. But I could, here's what we love about policies. You're the board, you approve them. If we want to look at that one and rethink it, especially in lieu of some things that are coming from the state, we absolutely can. So don't ever feel like that's really tight. Any of those policies are board approved, but it could have been board members way before all of us. And then when we did a review after 5 years, maybe it was just missed. So feel like you have some autonomy in this. And just let Pam know and we could revisit those.
if those classes are included into your full schedule, then you would be exempt. So if you have ROTC or band and you have 6 other classes besides those,
Oh,
then
yes.
you would be
Yes.
exempt.
Right, I mean,
Right.
you could get around it by hitting the academic
Yeah,
exemption, which is you're in 7 classes, including band, or, which a lot of students are. In fact, that's why they are academically exempt, because many of them are in band or JROTC, and they're really go-getters and well-rounded, and they also want to take a high level of academics. So that's usually our pool that's exempt.
Well,
but
for
I guess I
academics.
just take more offense to saying that band is
I have
non-sanctioned.
another question though.
Sports sanctioned. Let's put that word sports sanctioned.
Is this the counselors, the school counselors, job to make students aware that these exemptions do exist? Or is it for the student or parent to know this ahead of time? Just because this is a conversation that we had today at study table about physical education and athletes participating in gym, or being, in their mind, they're not made to participate in it, but that they don't get an exemption,
Yes, all the above, Allison.
or they don't know that they can get an exemption if they participate in
Right.
athletics.
So part of us bringing the program of studies to you early and going through this as a board and being thoughtful and having copies and looking at it, keep track of it, put little notes in there, highlight it. You're in the community. When you're in the community, I have conversations all the time We have a parent night coming up for 8th and 9th grade parents in November. We have one for 10th and 11th grade parents coming up in January. We have 8th grade parent meetings, and we try to pass this out. That's why we're waiting for the approval tonight. So we have a digital copy, we have hard copies, and we want everybody to be thoughtful because it takes all of us. It takes a teacher, it takes a counselor, it takes a student, it takes a parent advocating. We really want students to be advocates, right? So it's so dense and there's so much to know, but the more that you're out in the community and you have this to reference and just say, hey, did you know your student could be exempt from PE and take these other courses? So it's all of us.
Is the community one something that they can do every year?
What's that? I'm
The-
sorry, Stacy.
The community one, I can't remember what you called it.
Yeah, that one's on page, and it's not used very often. And again, it might be just students not knowing about it.
Yeah, I mean, because you have a girl doing drill team somewhere, or, you know, I think there are kids who are probably doing stuff and they may not know about it. But did you say that it's still a class period during their day?
So it's community wellness. It's on page 105.
Okay.
And it is recommended that they've taken just one PE class. But as you can see, it's a transition course for seniors to assist them with connecting to community wellness activities. It's an independent study program for seniors.
Oh, okay.
And they do log their hours and receive a credit for it. So that's pretty cool. It's actually a credit-bearing course.
And you can only do it once?
It's your senior
Right.
year.
Yeah, okay.
So it is a credit-bearing course, 1 of 5.
Called community wellness, PE study.
So how is that graded the same as regular PE classes, or is it a counted into GPA or not?
Well, I believe it was Dave Getman who's helped with that before. So they have an actual PE teacher that it's almost like when they do their independent study in work-based learning, and they have a course that anchors it, and they get a credit for that course because they're learning about 21st century skills. They're learning about health and fitness while they're logging that experience, and those number of hours logged gives them that credit. And my guess is, I'd have to check with Dave. I actually haven't sat in with him on this course, but I know we've had kids do this, how he would give them a letter grade and if it's captured in your GPA.
Yeah,
My guess is it would be because it's an elective.
Right.
Yeah, it's an elective credit.
Question is it pass-fail,
You can take non-core classes, pass-fail.
right, but if we're counting that in GPA, but we don't count PE or strength or anything else in GPA,
They're not counted in GPA?
no, they're pass-fail.
Really?
Yeah.
How is that designated on here?
Jesse, I'm pausing right now because I need to talk, do I have Dave's number? I need to get clarification on that.
I don't think they're in GPA.
We have to have a certain percentage for them to pass.
Pass, but they don't,
It's percentage.
right, it's a AB, you might be a AB or whatever, but it doesn't grow up in GPA.
Gosh, I thought I got mine higher that way.
No,
So were you the PE valedictorian?
because I ran the numbers, when I ran the
Okay.
numbers manually, it doesn't,
Well, you can probably tell by my shoes, PE is not my forte, but I will find out, Jesse.
yeah.
I will find out.
I mean, it's more a question of if we're gonna do this community one, but it's gonna be, if it rolls up in there, we should be thinking about it across, equally, how we treat those equal, is it a weighted into GPA or not for across the board there?
Yeah, because it's hard, I mean, looking in here, it just says, as a graduation requirement, they must complete and pass 4 phys ed courses in addition to health and life, I mean, unless they're obviously exempt, but it doesn't say that they're pass-fail.
Well, a curious thing's happening at East High because we're doing PE as standards-based grading, and it would capture it in the grade book on a 0 to 4 scale based on proficiency or exceeding proficiency, and that capturing that 0 to 4 does create a letter grade. So I am going to inquire, and I will let you know in the morning.
Okay,
All right,
or sometime.
soon. Thank
And I
you.
just wondered on page 19, on the top, it said if you have to pay for some of the classes. none of our students have to pay for any college classes, right?
No, the only time that a student would pay for a college course is if it's not one that we contracted. So we have, 64 Hawkeye classes that we will be contracting this year. And if a student wants to take one beyond the 96 that we offer, yes, they pay for it. And we've had a few students do that.
So if we just would have to pay for non-contracted classes?
Sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
I just think
I
if
absolutely can
people
do that.
read that, they'll think they might have to pay for some classes.
No, not only do they not have to pay for classes, they don't have to pay for assessments, they don't have to pay for certificates, they don't have to pay for books. If you're watching out there, people, this is all paid for because of our board and our superintendent in this community. It's a big deal.
Yeah. Now, if you take one remote, you might have to pay for the book, depending on how the setup is.
No, we don't do that anymore.
You got rid of that? Okay.
No, we pay for all. A lot of our non-publics, students take them online and we'll pay for their books.
Okay. So
Because
that
they are
changed.
our students first. So if you ever want to fall asleep, I can tell you all about the stories of concurrent. But it's important to know. No, we pay for all
So
that.
that changed from a few years ago, then, didn't it?
It did. We did have that as part of our policy, and we thought we were following it thoughtfully. But if we pay for other books outside of online, then we have to pay for all.
Okay.
And since we are very thoughtful about ensuring that we pay for all of kids' resources, we don't want to let that be a barrier for any students. We will pay for any,
Okay. That's good. though. That's
regardless
good.
of
That's a good
location.
change.
Regardless of location or how you're taking that class.
Oh, thanks for
Yep.
straightening me out there.
I got it.
And thanks for the discussion on the science. I mean, I appreciate everything we're doing here in the integrated classes. My biggest sore spot is that our state standards and our state colleges don't align themselves, so we just perfect like that. There should be better alignment there, I think, so. If they're under the same umbrella, they should have better alignment.
Well, and again, here's what I'm going to do that I think will help too. Of the kids who take the integrated, that's why we started that class, it's a full class.
Yeah.
Those students get those required 3 years and 2 years.
Yeah.
And then they can go on and take like a chemistry or a physics class. So that would be a high percentage. We really tried to offset that. But you're right, there could be a unique situation where then a student is required to get those 4 years in, right? And
Yeah.
maybe that's not their strength area if they want to meet that criterion. But again, we had this young man, same situation, he's taking chemistry right now
Yeah.
at his university. So it's not going to keep you from, it's just kind of like what we talked about before with world language. If you get 4 years and that 4-year college requires it, you're going to have to pay for it when you get there. So we try to do our best to ensure that doesn't
Yeah.
happen, but every now and again.
The integrated is helping too, so that was a good change.
Yep.
Yep, no,
Yep.
agree.
And I would just encourage parents to look at this book. I mean, this is exciting, to look
I
at the
know.
egg sciences,
I
to look
know.
at the beauty and wellness.
Awesome.
And even 10th graders can get into that intro to beauty. So it
Yes.
looks like, if it's open, I'm sure. And the fire science, I mean, how exciting. So
It's cool.
upcoming juniors and seniors that are freshmen and sophomore, parents, look at this book. There
Thank
is
you.
a lot of cool stuff that students can do.
Do we communicate this out to middle school parents?
Oh, yes, that's the
Like, not 8th grade,
timeliness.
like 6th and 7th grade parents, do they get communication on it?
8th grade parent nights usually are reserved for 8th grade parents, but maybe you're onto something. Maybe we
Right,
have a
but at
6th,
least
7th grade
send
night.
a link, because really, you should be looking at this before you're in 8th grade, right? Because you might want to be taking stuff as 8th grader. You might be wanting to plan ahead as a 7th grade parent and know where you want to go, because that roadmap doesn't have to start.
Well, as soon as you approve it, we can get it on our district website.
But, like some, notifications to parents from the buildings, to connect, whatever, the email, whatever we're doing, just to help, tell them, work on it early, so.
Well, good job, Sharice. Excellent. And I will then ask for a vote for approving the 24-25 high school program of studies. Please state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you, board.
very much.
Appreciate you.
Thank you, Sharice.
Yeah, thank you, Sharice. This is exciting stuff. This is cooler than when I started, like, at Hawkeye. These are cooler classes than that. This is pretty neat.
Yes, agreed. Okay, our next item would be item 9, and this is the classroom interactive display purchase for Central Middle School. The superintendent's recommendation is that the Board of Education approve the purchase of 36 Box Light Mimeo Pro Series 4 75 interactive displays from Bloom at a total cost of $71,775.52.
Second.
And we have Matt here to give us all the details.
Good evening.
Hello.
As the board is aware, all of our main classrooms have some sort of interactive display in them. Actually, that's new as of this school year after the board approved replacing our remaining old active boards in our remaining 5 elementary schools. So the board may recall that last spring we actually held a focus group with teachers, administrators, coaches, and others. They selected the Mimeo interactive panel, which is our new standard that we're equipping classrooms for. So those 5 elementaries that I mentioned, we're equipped with those over the summer, and that's the proposal in front of you tonight is to equip Central all of their classrooms with those as well. I will note that we got the vendor to actually extend that same pricing to us that we received this past spring, which is actually really good news because that was based off of a much higher quantity of a purchase. If you recall, was obviously a much higher than 36 panels, and obviously the cost generally goes down as the quantity goes up. So we were happy to get the vendor to extend that same pricing to us for this purchase, which is before you tonight. The one other question that you may have that may come up is, so what's happening with WCCX and the Central classrooms that are using WCCX? So I think the board is aware that right now the WCCX Central is kind of split between permanent classrooms, which are permanently part of WCCX, and some temporary classrooms that were in the high bay units. So all of those rooms are using Promethean, which was our previous selection, our previous panels, similar to one that's mounted over here. So those that are in the permanent classrooms, those will stay. Those are permanently, not permanently, nothing's permanent, but they're actually mounted to the wall. Those that are in the temporary classrooms are actually on mobile stands. So we actually have 2 uses in mind for those. First is our oldest interactive displays at the WCC now are over 6 years old in the oldest classrooms there. So we're actually going to look at replacing those. They're at that age where we would actually like to look at replacing those. And we actually have some of that same older model in use at a few of our middle schools as well. So as we typically do with computers, when technology ages, we like to do a partial replacement, which then gives us some spare units to basically keep the rest of the fleet alive. So it's a similar concept with our oldest classrooms there. I'll note also that those are a smaller version. 75 inches is the new standard. Those are 70-inch, which 5 inches doesn't sound like a lot, but measured diagonally, it's actually a decent amount of additional space. So we'll that way bring all of our WCC classrooms up to the new standard of 75-inch. The second piece that we're going to be doing with the remaining displays is actually sending one to each of our elementary schools. Interesting that your conversation earlier was about PE, because that's actually what we're targeting at the elementary school and working with our curriculum department. There's a new PE curriculum this year. That's been an ask that we've heard both from our PE teachers, principals, as well as from our elementary curriculum coordinator, that's actually a need at our elementary gyms to have some sort of display. Our gyms for a long time have not necessarily had consistent access to those. The curriculum does have some videos and instructional activities that they would like to play for the students, such as illustrating an exercise activity, that type of thing as well. And quite honestly, it'll be nice to just have that space have one that's accessible to them, in addition to the one mobile panel that's in the schools. Just kind of having some additional flexibility is always a good thing for our elementaries as well. So that really takes care of all of those temporary panels that are in those temporary classrooms.
How is that like
set up safely in a gym so it doesn't get like,
Yeah, it'll be on that movable cart.
Oh, okay.
So it'll be wheeled in and wheeled out. Obviously, there'll definitely be times where it will not reside in the gym, as you said, for safety
Well,
reasons.
maybe after hours when those gyms get rented out by community groups, wherever. We wanna
Sure,
Secure it away so you don't get an errant
for sure.
damage there. Just make sure I just make sure that
Each-
that's
Yep.
communicated out, that they know what the expectation is, so we don't.
And we'll make sure that we communicate that with our schools as well. Obviously, that differs at each school depending on what space they actually have. But you're absolutely right. Even if it's just pushing it into a classroom down the hall or something along those lines for those that don't have storage, we'll definitely make sure that gets communicated. It's a good point.
What kind of warranties do these have?
3 years.
3-year warranty, and then what's the lifespan? You said 5.5, we're moving, but
Yeah, so we're targeting 6 to 7 years with these. Our interactive boards, the previous generation, really, really should have been like a 7 to 8 year lifespan. We push some of them more 8 to 9. We tend to push things kind of on the high end, so we're targeting 6 to 7 as a minimum. But also, quite honestly, it's tough to compare to the previous generation, right? Because these are new. They actually have an operating system embedded into them. So then that comes security challenges and updates and things of that nature. There may be a point where the manufacturer just stops releasing updates and there's a major security hole. So it's a little tough to say because we're just getting to those stages where we're looking at replacing our first generation of those, but that's our current target.
So is more your issues software updates that they're no longer supported, or lack thereof, or mechanical type failures?
So we see, I would say both are a concern. We certainly have had panels. Interestingly enough, I would say it's actually more often that if they actually have mechanical issues, in other words, like they don't boot up properly or there's something wrong kind of with the electronics inside of
Short
them,
somewhere.
that often has been happening during the warranty period, so we're able to get that replaced at least during the warranty period. We've certainly had a few die outside of the warranty period as well, and quite honestly, the next several years will be a little interesting because we've had panels outside the warranty period, but for those of you that have been on the board for a while, you know that we kind of started slow with phasing these in and then have gotten more aggressive in the last couple of years. So we're just now going to be seeing that time period where those drift out of that 3-year warranty period. We'll see if that trend continues or not. But certainly also, as was mentioned, they have embedded software, which we're hoping the manufacturer continues to supply updates for, certainly better than your phone, which after about 2 years, then they stop supporting it with updates. So that's not at all a target. I was just using that as an example of what we don't want to see.
and we've purchased from these Bloom before.
Yep, this is the same vendor that we purchased the 5 elementaries from this past spring. Yep.
Awesome.
so like I always ask, what's going to happen to the old ones?
Well, like I said, at this point, the only old ones that we're replacing are truly at WCC, and those, we're talking about 7 of those, so
Okay.
that's just going to be spares then that'll allow us to keep the rest of the middle schools that have those alive. So we're not talking about replacing mass quantities
Yeah.
yet that we don't want to just have on hand as spares.
Cannibalize the part system.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, exactly. Or quite honestly, there's a few things that are field replaceable, but oftentimes it's truly if one dies and it's a replacement of the whole panel.
I just
which
want
is
to make sure
fun.
they weren't like going to a dumpster.
No.
Okay.
So are you expecting these this summer, or? when?
No, this is actually for the central remodel. So
Oh.
these, as of last week when I inquired, were in stock. So we're hoping will take under a month to ship
Okay.
here. Contractors will install that as part of that project before it opens this January.
Awesome. All right. Then all in favor then of the purchase of the interactive displays, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries 6-0. Thank you,
Thank
Matt.
you.
Happy Cybersecurity Month.
I love it. Thank you for the plug.
because I get emails every day at work. 40 of them. It's Cybersecurity Month. Okay. Next item is item 10, and it is sale of real property to the city of Elk Run Heights. The recommendation from the superintendent is that the Board of Education approve the sale of parcel F as described in the attached legal description to the city of Elk Run Heights for $1 according to the terms of the purchase agreement.
So moved.
Second.
And I see we have Zach here and Melissa Smack, is it? Lisa Smack, sorry. And if you guys would just enlighten us.
Yeah. Yep, so about a year ago, we put the property up for sale, just for the fact that all the Elk Run preschool kids went to different locations. One of them was Lowell Elementary, or Lowell Pre-K. So we put the building up for sale and the property, and we've had 3 parties reach out to us. One of them didn't work out. The other one is going to the board next board meeting. And then the third one was the city of Elk Run. Lisa Smock, the mayor, had presented a idea that they had and for a couple of facilities meetings that we had, and her idea, we decided to go forward with this. She can go into more details, but it includes 13 properties that they would sell, and it'd be a redevelopment area, cul-de-sac, right behind the Elk Run Preschool.
Yeah, so Board, thank you for allowing me to be here tonight. I just wanted to make sure I was here to answer any questions you might have about the purchase.
What about the asbestos removal of the Elk Run?
I'll let you do that.
So that's not a part of this. This is just the property itself
It's
behind
subdivided out.
the land.
Sorry.
So it's roughly 4 acres that would go to the city of Elk Run.
Got it. Thank you. Sorry.
No, that's okay. We are excited though about Boys and Girls Club taking the building and splitting the lot with them, so.
No other questions for Lisa or Zach? Okay, then all in favor of accepting the recommendation, please state aye.
Aye.
And no opposed, chair votes aye, motion is carried 6-0. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's nice to meet you, Mayor.
Yeah.
Thank you. Nice to meet you guys.
And our next item on the agenda is item 11, the limited English proficient allowable costs in excess of revenues. The superintendent's recommendation is that the Board of Education approve submission of the request to the SBRC for $89,800.20 in modified allowable growth to provide 100% spending authority for 23-24 actual LEP program costs, and that this increased allowable growth may be funded by 2024-25 cash reserve levies.
Second.
And we have Simona here and Jeff as our 2 contacts, so if you would both go to the mic, or if there's questions at all from...
Yeah, well, I can start out, and Simona's
Sure.
here to support. So, the Waterloo School District serves over 1,300 LEP students each year, and those students rely on the additional services they receive as LEP students to meet their needs in order to have instructional success. Each year at this time, we come to the board and make this request. The Department of Education actually contacts us, and it's almost a requirement that we request this additional modified allowable growth, or what you might often hear is referred to as authority. We are awarded that additional authority because the 2022 and 2023 school year expenses of the LEP students exceeded the categorical funds that we received. Because of that, we are allowed to make this request for the additional modified allowable growth. Then if we choose next April, when we do our aid and levy worksheet, we can always, if we choose, fill that with cash reserve levy to support the additional modified allowable growth that we're requesting. The spreadsheet that is in this exhibit comes directly from the Iowa Department of Ed, and if you'd like me to walk you through each line a little bit to explain what's going on with it. The top part of the spreadsheet on lines 1 through 10 come directly from our certified annual report that we filed in September. Those are the expenses related to the LEP program. And then the second half of the worksheet lists each of the funding sources we have for categorical LEP. So on line 12, it's a calculation based on the 870 LEP students we had this last year in our district. And the 870 is less than the 1,300 that I previously mentioned, because the 870 represents the students that are there within the first 5 years of being in the program. As we make the calculation, we receive a weighting of 0.22 per student, so the 870 students are multiplied by 0.22 to give us additional weighting of 191.4. The 191.4 then is multiplied by the $7,413 that we receive for each student in the district, and that gives us the $1.4 million that we receive in additional categorical funding. Line 13 shows the $364,000 that we receive that comes from Title III and a portion of the teacher salary and benefits that are paid by teacher salary supplement. Line 14 is the carryover we had in state categorical funds at the end of the 2021-2022 school year. Line 15 is the amount of modified supplemental authority we requested from the SBRC last year. And line 16 totals all of those fundings together to give us our total funding availability. When you compare the funding versus the expenses, that creates the $89,000 deficit.
So last year, we requested 458,000,
Yes.
and so why is it so much lower?
Again, the majority of our expense is in salary and benefits, and so it varies very much by, I think, what we have for need and also what we're able to get for instructors in the program. Simona might be able to address that a little better.
I do. Good evening. I do have a few numbers that you might want to hear about. So we have 13 as of tonight, and the numbers change, enrollment changes almost every day with the newcomers. We are seeing a demographic shift. And so that may impact the way, for sure impacts the way we instruct the students, but also the way we get funded, because there is different weighting for the newcomers versus the progressing versus the long-term ELLs. So we do have 1,300 students, out of which 673 are newcomers. This is big. 186 enrolled in 2023. The students who qualify for the newcomer status have to have been in the United States for less than 3 years and score level 1 on LPA 21 on the screener. So then they automatically gain this label of newcomers, and they are served in our district accordingly. Long-term ELLs, the new term in research is actually something that I like better because it's not a deficit perspective when you call them experienced multilinguals, 488 in our district, and a total of 44 languages spoken in our district, within which some of them, like the Burmese languages, Karen, Karenni, there are many subdialects that we cannot even count actually. So of course, knowing that we overspend almost every year, even before I existed as an item here in Waterloo, I started, since I took this position 2 years ago, I started looking at some things and what can we do to improve. Obviously, we know that kids do not learn language near proficiency in 5 years, and it takes up to 10 years. Research tells us that. However, we could expedite the learning process if we look at certain items, and these are the items that I'm looking at, and I'm looking at more granular data that I would be happy to put a report together if you are interested in more detailed data information. But this is what I'm looking at the newcomer ELLs. Now within the newcomer ELLs, we have the category of SLIFE, students with interrupted education. Just today at the middle school level, I looked at IXL, the screener that we are using, because we need a baseline to know what do they know in their first language, what do they know in English when they come, in addition to our LPA screener. So 8th grader, newcomer, scored or needed skills at the kindergarten level, 1st grade level, 2nd grade level. So I do not have a number. It's a little more difficult to pull that information because the screeners are given individually in each of the buildings, Bangor and West, where we have our newcomer strands. And so I'm curious to see how many within the newcomer group qualify for SLIFE, because obviously we need to provide them with tailored instruction and not the same as we provide for the rest of our newcomers. We revamped the newcomer program 5-6 years ago, and it took us a long time to look at instruction and tier it for the newcomers, for the transitioning into emergent ELLs, and for the students who are participating fully in classes alongside their English peers. Now, we are seeing the need with the larger numbers of SLIVE students in our district to rethink, and just today I met with Charisse to think about newcomer instruction at the middle school level, Bangor and West. What can we do? Talk to a couple of administrators to see, based on research and what we know are best practices, how we can provide better instruction for this group of students. The second one, progressing ELLs, make up for probably 2/3 of our population. And within this category, we have those who are within their initial 5 years and those who are past the 5 years. I mean, we have had, just looking at the data, students who have been in the district for 19 years. 19 years. So that is not exactly acceptable. And then looking at the category of long-term ELLs and experienced multilingual. So what do we do for them? Research also says we need a specially designed curriculum, a curriculum that you can actually buy. You cannot buy something like that. You have to develop it. So you have to look at your resources, you have to look at your demographics, and you have to decide what it is that addresses specifically the needs of this group of students. So within these categories, the areas that I'm focusing on, that we are focusing on as a program, it's time allocation for each of these categories to instruct them, like specifically in ELL. Within the time allocation, within these categories, we also looked at how they did on LPA 21, on the screener or the summative or both. We are looking at staffing ratio. There is no exact research on what ratio is a good ratio. As a district, several years ago, we decided that 1:40 is a manageable ratio. As I'm noticing in the past 2 years, that ratio, it's not necessarily meaning much anymore, simply because a building, for example, that has 200 students who are high progressing may have lesser needs than a building that has 30 students that are newcomers and SLIVE. So how do we staff them? Obviously, every year it's not possible to shift staff or to predict who's going to come to our district. So then we have to be strategic and to still think of a manageable number, and at the same time addressing these changes in demographics that are quite rapid in a way that is not reactive, but in a way that is sustainable and that can be replicated in every building. To give you an example of what is happening, for instance, teachers do want to understand what the students are saying, right? And so we cannot obviously staff and have an interpreter in every classroom, nor this is sustainable practice. It's a prop in the long term. So that's why we are thinking, what can we do for the newcomers so that they have maybe a dedicated period of time in the beginning of the school year or beginning of their career as newcomers to learn language, to learn the system, to learn the expectation, to learn social language, to learn how to say different things and name things so that, they can join classrooms. And that would be an intensive period of up to probably 12 weeks to allow them to function, at least at the social level, with their peers in the classrooms. We were very careful to have ELD, English language development, staffing in every building. We didn't have staff in every building, not because we didn't want to, but because we are not able to recruit enough staffing. A specialized approach to multilingual, experienced multilinguals. I developed together with a tool that shows us how we implement the program with fidelity. In other words, so we can think that what we are doing is good, but how do we know it's working? It's not just LPA 21, it's not just ISASP, which are one point in time data points. But when we start a program and we decide on the scheduling, obviously, based on the recommendations, this many minutes for newcomers, this many minutes for progressing and so forth, I do want to know how many students you had in the classroom, how many minutes did you allocate them, what was the formula? Pull-out is not as effective unless you're a newcomer. Co-taught is what we are encouraging as a district. And so when we reevaluate mid-year, you can do it as many times a year as you'd like to see if what I'm doing is showing results in the classroom. But obviously, beginning of the school year and end of the school year, we do need to look at this implementation and figure out, is this something, a formula that worked for these students? Also, I provide a 2-year data to all of the buildings that shows growth. So you can see, and it's also color coded, you can see who are your students who made progress and growth, using the same formula that the state uses to decide if we've made growth in the LL program. And that means that at least 1 point in at least one of the 4 domains. So you immediately have a visual, and you see how many students are in red, the ones who haven't made any progress, in orange, in yellow, and green, and so forth. And then you schedule them strategically, and that's another point that we are looking at, strategic scheduling. Are we grouping them by proficiency? Building staff capacity. Am I talking too much?
Well, it sounds like you have some awesome initiatives to verify your data and to show us your improvement. Is there any questions the board members might have for Simona?
Yeah, I got a few here. Did I, just going back to the early part of your presentation there, I thought I heard this correctly. Did you say we had 600 newcomers this year?
Not this year. So 673, it's newcomers who have been in the district within the 3-year period.
That's
Enrollment
600
in 2020, 21, 22, and 23.
So what's our population this year?
The population is, the enrollment this year is 186
186 are new to the district this year.
in 2023, just this fall.
Okay. And what was our trends on language there? Where are newcomers from?
Spanish,
Largely Spanish?
yes, by far,
By far?
yeah. Followed, not necessarily closely, but by French,
French,
Marshallese,
Marshallese.
yeah.
So nothing new that we hadn't seen yet?
More or less nothing new, I would say. We're seeing Central America and the population. So in December 22, January 23, there were some changes in immigration policies that allowed specific groups to come to the country legally. So we are seeing that. We are seeing those
And so-
populations represented, like Creole, Haitian. So those are relatively
You
new.
have variations of Spanish different from Mexico.
Not just Spanish, it's Portuguese, it's
Well,
English,
Creole would be
even
different, yeah.
English,
That'd be
yes.
more Caribbean.
Pidgin,
What do we do for, you talk about this 12-week period here, right, that you need?
yep.
And obviously, it's harder to get a 12-week period at the start of school year, right?
It could be the beginning of the school year or in the middle of the school year, depending on when the newcomers arrive.
Right. So what do we do for requirements during summer? Is that something that we try to do?
We do, yes.
Do we do
Yes, we have newcomer summer school every summer. We tried that even during COVID summer, and we had online classes.
Yeah.
Enrollment wasn't as great as it is in person, and the outcomes are not as great as they are in person. So yes, we are planning on summer school every year, every summer.
And is our attendance in that very well?
I think the newcomer portion of it, yes. ELL portion of it, yes. Within these populations, we also have a segment of ELLs who are labeled migrant, different from immigrant, and their attendance is not that great. But we have about 100 and something, so it's not a very large population, and it is within this larger number of 1,300.
A subcategory within.
Yes, yes.
So it sounds like really, we talk about summer school, but really putting some emphasis to, help. I mean, that's a 12-week period that we could help with language development that will probably show a lot of growth.
We are trying after school, so Bunger Newcomer, one of our newcomer STEM programs, is very open to after school, so we started recruiting teachers. 3 times a week is what we are thinking.
Do we provide transportation for those students home then?
We haven't figured that out yet, but yes, I mean, yes.
That could be a gap, right? That's,
We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
We have to figure it out.
Yeah. But I maybe would encourage sometime we can set up a time for Simona, you to come back and maybe bring that graph and with the chart and show us all, because the visual would be awesome.
Sure.
Because right now, we're basically talking about the budget, and so we're getting a little deeper into the topic, which is fine. We appreciate your passion, 100%, but we're just basically, doing the the CAP report on this, so if we can just, any more questions as far as the budgeting for Jeff or Simona?
No, but maybe a board workshop on this would be.
Yeah, that's what we were thinking, a workshop, or to have her come and give a formal presentation with, I would love to see all your modems that you use, and it would be awesome.
For that reason, I'm thinking maybe workshop hands-on would be nice so that you can actually see the tools and play with them and.
Yeah, so we would love that. We'll have Pam get with you, and at some
Okay.
point, we'll schedule that. So thank you so much.
Sure.
So anything else for Jeff? Okay. So then, all in favor of approving, please state aye. Aye. Any opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries 6-0. Thank you very much, Jeff and Simona. Then our next item is item 12, and this is the LEA Certified Annual Reports. And the superintendent's recommendation is that the Board of Education place on file the Certified Annual Report, the Special Education Supplement, and the Annual Transportation Report as required by the Iowa Department of Education.
So moved.
In a second?
Second.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you. And we are back to you, Jeff. Thank you.
Okay, again, this is just an exhibit that we bring to the board every year about this time. It's just to go through the process that we in the business office work through each year, the different components that kind of go hand in hand to show the timeline of everything and how it all plays out. So, as each of you know, our fiscal year end is June 30th, and then after that, we have our auditors come in each year, as required by law, an independent CPA firm to audit our books. Along with this audit, we're required to file with the Department of Education 3 important documents: the Certified Annual Report, also known as the CAR, the Special Ed Supplement, and the Annual Transportation Report. These reports, specifically the CAR, are then provided to our auditors along with the Department of Ed so that they can use it as the tool they measure all of our finances against and verify the accuracy of the information that we're reporting in our financial statements. In December, we'll be coming back with audited financial statements and with the auditors to give actual financial information. Tonight's just kind of talking through the process. And then at that time, we'll also be sending our CAFR to the GFOA and ASBO for the Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting. So at this time, we're just letting the board know that these reports are steps that have been completed as part of the process for the audited financial information that will be provided in December. Any questions?
What are we anticipating the auditors?
They've been here.
Okay, great.
Yeah, they come 2 weeks. They're here for a week in August to do what they call their preliminary work. They send a list of over 100 items they want us to have prepared ahead of time. And then they come back a second time after September 15th, after we have the certified annual report done. And as I was saying, that's when they use that document to then compare and make sure that our general ledger agrees to those numbers.
Great. Great. Good job getting this done. In the absence of Michael and everyone in your department pulling together, this is a big task, so appreciate all the extra work to get this done.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Jeff? Done a great job presenting, so all in favor then, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries 6-0. Thank you very much, Jeff. We appreciate it. The next item is item 13, board policy changes, and this is only the first reading, so we do not have any action taken, just discussing these. There are 6, it looks like, and we have Pam here to assist and the members of policy and review.
Yeah, so policy review met this last week, and I think I've said a couple times, we are really working hard right now to bring our policies up to date and consistent with the guidance that we're getting from IASB. So those are a lot of the changes that you see before you tonight are just bringing those. These were, a lot of them were either due to the new legislation or they are, policy gets reviewed every 5 years. So some of those were primer changes for that 5-year review as well. The assistance animals had a kind of a nice conversation during
It came from the
policy
DOJ.
review. Yes,
The
it
horse
did.
was not us. It came from the
I
Department of
started looking
Justice.
at the
Department of
miniature
Justice,
horse
yes,
department here.
yes.
This is,
2010 ADA.
So, this partially came up because we did have some staff that was asking, we had some administrators that were just checking in on this as far as, the availability of assistance animals for students and staff in their buildings. So we noticed that we actually did not have a specific policy on this, so we're bringing this forward as well. Jen is also in the audience tonight if there's any specific questions on the 600 policies as well. So if any questions, just let us know.
And I did want to say, the horse, it is a real thing. It's a visual. It's for visually impaired people if you're allergic to a dog and they live longer.
I just watched a documentary on, the autistic island, the ponies there. They had a program, the Fetter program, and they do emotional support horses for their one that was a young lady that got one that really needed one, a teenager, and it was an interesting story because those are wild. Those on that island, those are wild horses. They literally are wild horses that they're bringing and they're auctioning off, and on the East Coast there. But she talked about how the horse could figure out when she was upset and stuff. So it's pretty interesting. Some animals are always higher intelligence than other. They can detect some of that. So
And this one is very specific.
Yeah.
It has to be the miniature horse. They're trained very specifically because these are actual service horses. But it
Right.
is, so they could have them in the building. We did have a really fun discussion about it.
I hadn't seen it before. So this is interesting.
I was wondering on the 602.8, the health education, just in reading through it, seeing what was removed, just wonder if we ever consider, and not, but, to stress age appropriate, because I feel like, we have fundamentals and we need to, you don't teach a kindergartner the same thing as you teach a 12th grader as far as health.
I also wanted real quick to put in here that we are not, this is not saying we're not going to teach about STDs. It's just, it falls under the communicable diseases. So it was just taking out extra verbiage. I just wanted to add that in because to make sure that it's clear that we're not gonna not teach those things.
And Sue, we had that same discussion too, and the way that we read this, because it looks like, yes, you're gonna teach all these things maybe at elementary school, but when they say in that first couple of words, students in grade levels 1 through 12 shall receive, it doesn't break it down, but it's just trying to be real broad to say in 1st through 12th grade, these things will be taught. At every grade level then, we do have that delineated as to who gets what when.
I'm just a bit concerned that the broadness could lead to maybe some inappropriate.
Yeah, and we're gonna really have to watch that, and we can come back at a later time too, and kind of lay out for the board what is taught at 1st grade, what is taught at 8th grade.
Yeah, I think that would be good, and for our community too,
Sure.
because, we don't want parents to think that their kindergartner is gonna
Right.
learn something that's totally inappropriate. I
Right.
mean, or that their 12th grader is gonna
Yeah.
hear something about brushing your teeth.
Well,
I mean,
kindergartners and 5th graders go to the same library, right? So
It was an interesting discussion as well because all of us old folks remember the 5th grade talk in Waterloo where the boys and girls got split and the girls went and learned about your body and the boys went, and now I found out it's 6th grade. So I'm interested to know that stuff too.
Sure.
To see how we lay it out would be great.
And I think they do a pretty good job, if I'm not mistaken, of sending a letter home
Yes.
about certain topics that they're gonna
Right.
discuss, and you
Yeah.
can, say you don't want your child to be part of the conversation too.
Exactly. We want to make sure that parents can look at the materials and know what we're talking about if they're interested. So we do send that out ahead of time. Thanks, India.
Go ahead.
Well, and I had on another one, are you still on?
I'll circle back on it. You go ahead.
Okay. The 605.2, as far as the materials, just wondering, is this really the responsibility of the superintendent to develop administrative regulations? So is the superintendent actually going to look at a parent that says, I don't want my child to read this book, but I want my child to read this book? I mean, my kids had, in their ELP, there were books I didn't want them to read, so we worked with the instructor, but I can't imagine that went to the superintendent.
I think the way that ISB is looking at this is kind of how we're seeing the legislation as well. It comes back to the superintendent always. And so kind of like the buck stops with Dr. Smith, but he could very much delineate to me, hey, I need you to meet with this family, or, to an instructor or a principal.
So an assigned delegee or
Right.
something could also
Well,
be
yeah,
added.
the last sentence talks about that the superintendent's going to develop the regulations and the administration part. So I do think that that's what you're talking about.
Right. And legislation this year, the new laws that are in place now, a lot of them come back to say, this is on the superintendent. If I make a mistake, yes, I might get a consequence, but so is the superintendent. So it's
legally,
interesting.
I mean, legally, it's on him. I guess as a parent, I'm thinking.
Right.
As a parent, I'm
Yes.
thinking,
Yeah.
oh, why don't I just send it to Dr. Smith then? I mean,
I think that's pretty typical language. I will say that we've got Gina Weekly has really done a great job of taking on the role of a lot of the legislative changes. So she's currently working with, as you look at the line above, the comprehensive list of books available.
Yeah.
She's working on that work right now with our librarian. She met with Tina, who's I don't know her exact title, but she helps lead that group.
Well, and the school libraries already are all,
They're all, anybody can go and look
Yeah.
at Destiny online and
So-
see what books we have available in our libraries, in every library.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we're up to date on that one. And then what you were talking about, Sue, if you look farther, there's a process. That's what we put in. There's a process on how to go about saying that you have that you would like to discuss further a certain instructional library material. I think what you were talking about when it's in a specific class, typically teachers do have an additional option available.
Yeah, and it would be fine. Usually, you're right, it will be just to the instructor, or maybe to the building administrator. It would not go to the level of Jared, but that's how the verbiage is now. But yes, if you look at 605.35, if there's an objection to instructional or library materials, then there is a process that is laid out there in that policy. And parents or guardians of students enrolled in the district have that ability to request that a student not access certain things.
I just want to follow up to just a little bit on what Jen had said earlier about, like, so many of these legislative changes that were coming down, like that exact verbiage is in so many of them that it's up to the superintendent, it's up to the superintendent.
Yeah.
So really, it's kind of like, I'm just simply, if you look at the org chart, it's the superintendent delegating things, so it's still, in the end, it's still his responsibility, his or her.
yeah. Legality, he would be the one.
Right.
Quick question about the school calendar.
Yes.
I know there's always that comment sometimes in the community that the school kids are always out of school. So how many PD days do teachers have in the year for the school calendar?
I think when we add them all up for staff, for teachers, it would be, don't quote me on this, but it's like 9.
Okay.
So we have 4 during the school year, when kids are not in session on like a Friday. Typically 4 days before school starts in August, and then a day at the end of the year.
Wow. I feel like a lot more than that.
Well, it used to be Wednesdays, remember? It was-
Yeah, I remember. Yeah,
it was early on Wednesdays.
Please don't.
I mean, isn't some of it the built-in snow days too that,
Yeah, it just felt like there's always a comment from somebody like, they're never in school, they're, so that's
Yeah.
good to know about 9.
Yeah, and really only 4 when kids are in session.
yeah.
I think there's only two, and we've had 2 snow days built in the calendars for the last few years. That we've been pretty limiting on that.
It's not
but-
gonna snow this year.
Yep, not in Florida.
You jinxed it.
If you say it, it won't happen.
Well, when it's almost Halloween time, it's about time we, bring
I
in
know,
the coats.
I know.
You're prophesizing that, Jen.
Right, right.
Okay,
I
any
did
other,
ha-
okay?
I did have one,
Sure.
I'm just curious here on this assisted animals stuff here. Do we have a way to identify a conflict between maybe 2 students in a classroom or a student and staff member were to say where we have a staff member who has an animal, or a student has an animal and gets placed in a classroom that there is a staff member, maybe they're allergic or have a fear of certain, do we have a plan in place that we
We
would
do.
be able to
Yeah.
mitigate those
We'd
type
have
of
to
issues?
move a student, we'd have to move a student or a staff member to a different room.
So we do have, so it's not
Yeah.
something that we would guess, we wouldn't get caught, like, how are we gonna handle this type of?
Right,
Okay.
right.
But have we had that come across at all?
Not yet.
Okay.
Have we had assisted animals in class?
I am aware of a staff member or two
Yeah,
that
one. I know at
have
least one, yeah.
an assistance animal, but
Yeah.
And
not-
didn't you say there's some training at times too that teachers will,
sometimes
training?
teachers will be a trainer
yeah.
of an animal, and depending on the school building, it depends on if they're allowed to bring them in.
That's something pretty common. I mean, my daughter tells me that, like, she's friends with a number of people that train them at colleges. That, I mean, that's what they're doing. They're training to
Right,
service
yeah.
animals in colleges, and
Yeah.
there's certain rules on whether or not they can, if they pass or not. If they don't do so well, then they are adoption homes for them, different things. There's different scenarios on that, like, because some animals end up going up for adoption because they're good animals, but they're not good enough to be
Can't
service
pass.
animals.
Right.
You know.
Right.
And did you talk about that, we did have a situation where there was a child who wanted to bring it and they did not have an IEP or 504, right? And so that's something that we're
Right,
that
we
the
have to
policies
make
fit.
sure that everything is aligned with requirements.
And I'm sure we will do that. So, thank you very much, Jen. I don't think we have any further questions. So we are done with our action and informative items tonight, except for our superintendent's report.
Okay, I've got 3 things here. First of all, last week was, we observed National Custodian Appreciation Day. So we've got, I don't know the exact number in the district, but I've met with them a couple times. I would say we're approaching 100 custodians across the district. So a large number of employees we have that are doing great. I was hoping to have Nicholas come down here. Nicholas is in works the ESC building. We all know Nicholas. He does a great job for us. He's off today. So I know, we'll get him again. We'll get him again next time, but we did shower him with cards and gift cards and all that. So, strategic plan. So remember, I've shared with you that we're going to refresh our strategic plan for next year. The survey is closed. We had 1,200 responses. So we're currently digging through those and looking for themes and looking for patterns, and going to bring that to the DLT next week or in 2 weeks. Last but not least, we had another transportation meeting today. John from corporate flew in and met with us, along with Chris, who's the area manager, and I'm gonna knock on wood a little bit. The feedback we've gotten from the buildings is that things have been better this past week. I would not say they're great, but it does seem like some of the concerns we brought up 2 weeks ago in our meeting are being listened to. We saw an updated action plan today that looked pretty good. it does sound like, I've been saying this since August, it does sound like the staffing we're getting better in terms of the number of drivers they've got. And they've kind of laid all that out to us today as well. So, just please those of you watching, those of you listening here, just know that we're working on it. We will not let this go. We're going to have consistent updates, and touch base meetings with them until we get it fixed.
Couple questions. 1,200 out of how many staff?
So it was 1,260. It was like 700 staff responded, and about 600, around 600 community members.
Okay, so more than half of staff.
More than
Of
about half staff.
Okay,
About half staff. Yep. It was a longer survey. I mean, so we kind of knew it'd be hard to get. I mean, it probably took about 15 minutes to complete, as opposed to some of our other surveys that have been very short.
And regarding the busing, I had a call from a bus driver. When will the cameras be installed?
I was told today that they'll be installed over the weekend, that they'll be ready to go for next week.
And then in the dark, like, because it's dark in the mornings, how do they capture the activity in the dark?
With the cameras?
Yeah.
I'm not. It's a good question. We've been using cameras for a while during activities. And it sounds like these are. Again, I'm not the expert here, but it sounds like these are good, like high quality cameras. Just from previous experience, we've been looking at video from activities, which are nighttime, for years. So I have to think it's not perfect, but they can see.
No, the
enough.
driver just asked, how do they see
Sure.
what's going on in the bus when it's pitch black on the bus? So I said,
Yeah.
that's a good question.
Well,
I
my,
didn't know.
my Ring camera is cheap and it can pick up dark, so I'm sure these have the same ability to switch over to I don't know, it's not infrared, but whatever it's called.
There's that.
There's our man.
Infrared, awesome. Thank you,
There you go,
infrared.
the expert.
Yes, and then on those lines, she had indicated, this driver, that they're bringing in people from outside to drive the routes. So are they allowing, like, seasoned drivers to help them, because these new people don't know the roads and the routes?
So my understanding is that the outsiders are just like filling in until we get those filled. So for a short period of time. I do agree that there's a little bit of a learning curve with those individuals who are unfamiliar with the area. So as opposed to just maybe needing one or two times to go through the route, it's been multiple times to kind of get things figured out. But I think the people they brought in have been there for a little while now, so they should be caught up to speed.
When you say outsiders, what do you mean by outsiders?
Yeah, so they've brought in they have a unique, and I'm learning all this too, but like, they're bringing drivers in from other first student sites to come and pick up the slack. So maybe an area where they're have a surplus of drivers. I'm not sure if that's, okay, but having them come and drive the route. So what I was told yesterday, for example, Normal, Illinois, which is another first student district, they've been sending employees for Normal up here to our site to like help until we get things up to speed.
And then last question, sorry, I told her I would ask. She was wondering if we had gone to drivers for their suggestions on how to help the routes, because like this particular driver has one student she has to take to Cedar Falls. And so, like, the drivers would know their routes and know what would be a little more efficient. So I was just wondering if
I
we
mean,
got
you know
their
me,
input.
I'm like go to the source.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get Zach is gonna Zach works much closer, obviously, with the bus garage. So
Yeah, good question. So we met with the union president, who's a bus driver. She's been there for 27 years. We met with her last week to get input, because they're the ones in the trenches. They've seen how things have worked and not worked. So we met with her, just Sarah and I individually, and then we brought her in last week with first student. to get those concerns of the constant routes and what she's seen. So we felt it was a good meeting with them. We were being listened and she was being listened, so that was great movement that I felt.
And so drivers should go to the union rep with their concerns?
Yep,
Okay,
absolutely.
okay, perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that's all I have.
Okay.
Thanks, Zach.
All right, so we will start with Stacy tonight.
So, we had the official reboot of the Equity Committee. What day was that? Was it?
Monday.
Okay. And I'm just going to kind of read what Gina helped me outline a little bit about it. So, and I don't remember when I first came on the board, I joined the Equity Committee, and this is kind of where we were. So, for many years, most members have stated, although they met, it was inactive with roughly 7 to 8 members attending, which is kind of how it ran. Our first meeting, we had 37 committee members attend from diverse backgrounds and sectors. We filled this place. We will be forming action teams within the committee that the members will lead to guide the work to support our district. So we had papers up around, and we went through and listed ideas for each of the following: academic achievement, behavior data, attendance, professional learning, communications, and community connections. So each group would go through and put in some ideas that we had, and then we all signed up for which action committee we wanted to be on. We also, after we worked on the mission statement and was it an action statement as well?
Yes.
Okay, because those haven't been changed, I don't think, in a very long time. So we did a little of that. The next meeting is November 6th. I'm really excited. I'm really excited. I think that there's going to be some really great things. The people that were here, the folks we had, it was such a diverse group, from parents, stakeholders, to past employees. Dr. Bev was here, so it's going to be good. It really is. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
All right, Jesse?
Well, I'm gonna just do a big thank you we hosted state band last weekend. West High did, and paired that with a home football game Friday night. And
It wasn't just West High, it was Waterloo Schools hosted it, wasn't it? Or
No,
is it just
West High.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
East participated, but West High was the host for state band.
Got ya.
So, but the thank you is to all the volunteers we had. We had an amazing number, upwards of 75 between families and community volunteers that came out. And I mean, it was we host a lot of events, but when you host a state level competition of any kind, that is something kind of different. Not too many schools get to host a state level event. I know we get bowling at our local bowling alley, that hosts state there, but there's a lot of people come out, and I was just appreciation to the hours they spent, and also appreciation particularly to Dan Huff and Zach Kelly, who did a lot of support for that leading up to it, met with groups, and all the people that did come out. It was a long day, but it was a really nice day, and we got to showcase some of our facility improvements. I can remember, if you go back to my daughter was probably, older daughter was probably a freshman or sophomore, when we still had natural grass and hosted it, and it was a rainstorm the night before, and now we're here.
It was mud everywhere.
Yes, and you think bands are worse because they walk in the same circle. They don't walk on and down the field. They stay within the 30, 40 yard lines. But
That was the year they couldn't wear their uniforms because there was so much mud.
yeah, I know. I think it was Dubuque Hempstead had white pants that year. Somebody had white pants. I was like, oh my gosh. But again, we're able to showcase our what we can do as a community, as a district with volunteers, and host a major event, but also showcase a lot of the good work we've done on our facilities, and are still some areas that we want to improve on out there. But just a big thank you. Like I said, big thank you to Zach and Dan to also help get us the, necessary facility support we needed there, and all the families that came out. So thank you again.
Thank you. India?
I just wanted to say that I miss our students today. Our groups that came on.
Oh,
So I just miss our students. So hopefully next time we have a group of students to come through. Okay, great, thanks.
Okay, Esther?
There are conferences this week, so make sure you're checking on your students and their academic process. And I know somebody else will hit this. Sue probably will. So that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Janelle?
The most fun part of the contest on Saturday was how much the different bands supported each other, how much West High was there for East High and East for West, and both for for Cedar Falls, watching their performance. I had a volunteer parent who hadn't done very many band things ask me, well, I didn't expect this, I didn't expect the kids to be this nice to each other. And I said, well, this is a competition, but this is also art, and this is also about enjoying each other's art and appreciating, how much work everyone has put in on this and celebrating what everyone else has done. And I think I really made a convert that day to the process of pageantry and marching bands. So thank you again to Dan and Zach and the 75 volunteers and Jason Dobbs and Sally Lang. They did the game on Friday night with the kids. They showed up early in the morning at the stadium, ran an entire contest while having a band compete, then cleaned out the entire contest within 50 minutes, had all the kids and equipment on the bus to go to Valley West Des Moines, and got home at 2 o'clock in the morning. So your stipend dollars at work, ladies and gentlemen. So, and there's still one more game to go. Anyway, thank you to everyone. As always, thank you to the teachers and the paras and everybody that does this extra stuff for our kids, because this extra sports, theater, band, all of it is really what makes the experience for our kids. So thank you all very much.
And how did West do at Valley?
I'll tell you, they're a very small band competing against larger bands, but over last year, they improved 3 points, which is a big deal, and got 5 points closer to the nearest school. And even though we were 11th, the smallest band, their percussion and their guard were not last place. So making major strides in building the programs back up. So they were sure tired little boys and girls when they got home, though.
Valley's a different beast, too.
Yep.
I mean, you look there, there's more bands, there's a lot more. They're bringing in out-of-state bands, and it's a whole different.
How many students
our last
average, like a big band? How many students does West High have for band, and how many does Valley have?
Right now we have 92 kids at West and about 85 at East, and you're talking like, when you're talking about Waukee and Valley and those groups, you're talking about 250, 300 kids. And it all has to do with the middle school programs, which I'm working with some folks right now on that, and working with some challenges that we have. We have some challenges that are specific to here, and they do have to do with all the things that we offer kids. When we choose to offer the stuff at the WCC and all kinds of other things and push high school credits at the middle schools, it does tend to make it more difficult to build up a program like what we see. So, there's some give and take here, but we're finding ways to celebrate what our band students are doing, and make sure that they have choices to do all the things that they need to do. So thanks for all your support, guys, too, with all the fine art stuff. I really appreciate it.
You said 92 for West and 85 for East?
Yeah.
Okay.
Janelle, when my little one came home, she was talking about Linmar, which has 3,000 less kids than us, and their band is ginormous. And she's like, Mom, someone from there said that you're kind of weird if you don't join band. So if you're not in a sport too, but so I would love to see that culture grow here, that if you're not doing anything, if you're not involved in anything else, if you're not in band, then yeah, come on. So.
Okay. Well, I think that's it, and I don't have anything this evening. I've asked lots of questions prior to, so with that, could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Chair votes aye, motion carries 6-0. Thank you, and have a good evening.